Marcus Washington was having his morning coffee when the sirens pierced the quiet suburban air. The 34-year-old teacher had just finished grading papers for his 5th grade class when police cars surrounded his modest home on Maple Street. "Marcus Washington, you're under arrest for the kidnapping of Emma Patterson," Detective Reynolds announced as officers swarmed his front yard. Marcus's coffee mug shattered on the kitchen floor. "What? There must be some mistake." The whole neighborhood watched as he was led away in handcuffs. Emma Patterson, the 8-year-old daughter of prominent businessman Richard Patterson, had been missing for 2 days. Someone had called in a tip claiming they saw Marcus talking to the girl near the school playground. Within hours, the story exploded across social media and local news. "Local teacher arrested in child kidnapping," screamed the headlines. Marcus's photo was plastered everywhere, and the comment sections filled with anger and assumptions. "I always knew there was something off about him," whispered Mrs. Henderson, his next-door neighbor, to the news cameras. The school board immediately suspended Marcus pending investigation. Parents demanded answers. Some even organized protests outside the police station, calling for swift justice, but Marcus maintained his innocence from his jail cell. "I was home grading papers all evening," he told his court-appointed lawyer, Sarah Mitchell. "I have witnesses, proof, why won't anyone listen?" Detective Reynolds was thorough, despite pressure from the community and media to close the case quickly. Something didn't sit right with her about the anonymous tip. She decided to dig deeper. The security footage from the school showed Marcus leaving at 4:30 p.m., just like every other day. His car's GPS showed a direct route home, with a stop at the grocery store. The store's cameras confirmed he was there at 5:15 p.m., buying ingredients for dinner. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of Marcus's home and car revealed no trace evidence linking him to Emma's disappearance. No fingerprints, no DNA, no signs of struggle. "The timeline doesn't match," Detective Reynolds told her captain. He couldn't have taken the girl. But the pressure mounted. The Patterson family, influential in the community, demanded results. The mayor called daily. The media circus grew larger. While Marcus sat in jail, his elderly mother, Dorothy Washington, refused to believe her son was guilty. A retired librarian with a sharp mind, she began her own investigation. Dorothy remembered Emma from the library's after-school program. The little girl often seemed sad and would ask Dorothy if she could stay longer rather than going home. She was always asking about books on different families, Dorothy recalled. Stories about children finding new homes, being adopted, running away to find better lives. Dorothy's heart sank as she realized what might have really happened. Detective Reynolds followed up on Dorothy's concerns. She interviewed Emma's teachers, school counselors, and neighbors more carefully this time. A pattern emerged that everyone had missed in their rush to blame Marcus. Emma had been exhibiting signs of distress for months. Her grades had dropped, she'd become withdrawn, and she'd made several concerning comments to her school counselor about bad things at home. The counselor, bound by confidentiality initially, finally came forward when she realized an innocent man was in jail. "Emma told me she was scared to go home. She said her father's business partner was mean to her when he visited." Detective Reynolds obtained a warrant to search the Patterson home more thoroughly. In Richard Patterson's home office, they found something chilling, evidence that Richard's business partner, Michael Torres, had been embezzling money and had been using Emma to keep Richard quiet about suspicious activities. The truth was devastating. Emma hadn't been kidnapped by a stranger. She had run away to escape Michael Torres, who had been threatening her to keep her father from investigating the missing money. Torres had convinced Richard that reporting anything would harm Emma, creating a web of fear and silence. Emma was discovered 3 days later in an abandoned warehouse where Torres had been hiding her. She was frightened but physically unharmed. Torres was arrested on charges of kidnapping, child endangerment, and embezzlement. The real story finally came out. Emma had run away from home because Torres had threatened her family. She'd been hiding, too scared to come forward, not knowing who to trust. Marcus Washington was immediately released and all charges were dropped. The district attorney issued a public apology, but the damage was already done. The community that had rushed to condemn him now faced their own reckoning. The school board offered him his job back, but Marcus declined. The trust had been broken. "I spent 5 days in jail for a crime I didn't commit," Marcus said at a press conference. 5 days wondering if my life was over because people chose to believe assumptions rather than wait for facts. The consequences rippled through the community. Mrs. Henderson, who had made accusations to the media, faced a lawsuit for defamation. The school board faced criticism for their hasty suspension without proper investigation. Several news outlets had to issue formal retractions and face legal action for irresponsible reporting. Richard Patterson's business reputation suffered when the embezzlement scheme was exposed. The community had to confront their own biases and the damage caused by rushing to judgment. Michael Torres received a 15-year prison sentence for kidnapping and related charges. Emma received counseling and slowly began to heal from her traumatic experience. She insisted on writing a letter to Marcus, apologizing for the trouble caused by her disappearance. "Dear Mr. Washington," she wrote in her careful child's handwriting, "I'm sorry bad things happened to you because of me. You were always nice to me at the library. I hope you can forgive us." Marcus, moved by the letter, chose to channel his experience into advocacy work, speaking about the dangers of prejudgment and the importance of due process. 6 months later, Marcus stood before a community gathering at the local church. "This experience taught us all something important," he said. "Truth has a way of revealing itself, but only if we're patient enough to wait for it and brave enough to accept it when it comes." Dorothy Washington, sitting in the front row, smiled proudly at her son. The community had learned a hard lesson about assumptions, prejudice, and the critical importance of seeking truth rather than accepting convenient explanations. Emma Patterson, now in therapy and doing better, had also learned something valuable: that running away isn't the answer, and that there are always adults willing to help if you speak up about what's wrong. Marcus eventually moved to another city where he could start fresh, but he maintained contact with Detective Reynolds, who had fought for the truth when others were ready to accept lies. The case became a turning point for the police department, implementing new protocols to prevent rush judgments and ensure thorough investigations regardless of public pressure. The community established a fund for wrongly accused individuals and began hosting monthly discussions about bias, justice, and the importance of reserving judgment until all facts are known. Emma grew up to become a social worker, dedicated to helping other children who might be afraid to speak up about dangerous situations at home, and in the end, the truth, though it came with great cost, set everyone free from the web of assumptions and fear that had trapped them all.